My name's Kevin Gannon, and I've been at Grandview for 17 years now, and this is my position as a faculty and administrative position. I direct our Center for Excellence in Teaching and Learning, and I'm also serve as professor of history. I do a lot of community work, and I also consult for other colleges and universities and some state governmental agencies on things like diversity, equity, and inclusion. So I had the privilege of being involved in the documentary 13th, directed by Ava DuVernay. It was nominated for an Oscar. Well, I think, racial unity is a great ideal, but as a historian, what I can tell you is that it's an ideal that we have not lived up to in this country. And what I worry about sometimes is the rhetoric of unity being used to kind of paper over the divisions that have been in our past and in our present. So for example, if we say now that, protests in the Black Lives Matter movement, well, those are divisive, we say. Well, why are they divisive, right? It's because some people are getting upset at the protests. And so what the price of unity then becomes is docility and an unwillingness to talk about some of the things that we honestly need to reckon with. Frederick Douglass, the ex-enslaved person, abolitionist and writer, African-American of the 19th century, has a famous quote where he says, "If there is no struggle, there is no progress." He goes on to say, "Power concedes nothing without a demand." And I think one of the things that we have to recognize is any time in this country that we've made gains in terms of civil rights and overcoming some of the barriers of racism, those gains have always produced a significant backlash. And I think we see that happening today. And those gains have never come without a struggle. Martin Luther King Jr. is held up as someone today as a figure of unity. But when King was actually operating in the 50s and 60s, people called him divisive. People called him, he's inciting violence. He's the real racist because he's not unifying us, he's dividing us, right? So some of the same things that we hear today were criticisms leveled against King and other civil rights leaders. You had Gallup poll favorability ratings of public figures in the United States. King had less than a 25% approval rating among white Americans. And so today we see King as this figure that everybody sort of loved, and we hear the "I have a dream" speech. But let's not forget, King was beaten, King was arrested, King was hated, King was assassinated. Unity, I think, is a really essential goal. We want to be a community that embodies unity, that gets over the divisions of racism, but we can't get over divisions by just sweeping them under the rug. And sometimes I'm afraid that when we talk about racial unity, what we really mean is, I wish black people would stop complaining. That's oftentimes a white person's view of racial unity. I don't want to be bothered. I don't want to feel guilty. I don't want to feel confronted by this. And for many white people, you can get out of those conversations pretty easily. But for people of color in this country, that's their life experience. They can't get out of that conversation. We talk about, the goal of trying to achieve a society where you have interracial unity. What that means is there's really a lot of work that white folks need to be doing in terms of listening, taking down some of their barriers and obstacles, and doing the work that it takes to build that kind of community. And right now as a society, unfortunately, not a lot of us are there. The larger obstacle here, again, I think there's so much work to be done, but a lot of it is work for people who look like me, for white people and white males in particular. It's very easy if you're a white person in this country to be in spaces where everybody looks like you and where everybody's culture resembles yours, and where everybody's experiences are similar to yours. It's easy to be in that bubble and never see the stories or experiences or lives of people who look different than you. You have to get out of that bubble as a white person, right? What media are you consuming? Who is in your group of friends? Who are in your social circles? Who at work? Who's in the room at work? Is it just white people? Because that's a problem if that's your job, right? We have to do that work, and we have to be willing to confront the fact that we live in a society that rewards people who look like us and penalizes people who do not in many cases. Now, that's not to say that every white person is, a tiki torch carrying racist. But what it is to say is we can't be complicit in this larger system. And if you're white, it's very easy to be complicit. And so you have to ask yourself, what am I willing to do?